Hello, YouTube and Whooper Club fans. I'm Michael, aka Fruit Taco, aka the coach of the Route 1 Birbs, welcoming you to the last feature match of the season. That's right, we've made it all the way to the end. It's the championship match, and it's myself and my Route 1 Birbs up against the Newport Noctowls, and as an extra treat, I've got Elf Owls, the coach of the Noctowls, joining me today to go over the match. Thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about this match.
Yeah, there is a lot on the line here with myself going for my third championship win in a row and you looking to close out a perfect season, both of which I think are only accomplishments the Buffalont have right now. Do you know?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, let's try to knock Nate off his throne here.
Heck yeah. We've got a lot to go over though, so let's jump into it. The Noctowls are made of Kilowattrel, Iron Moth, Hydreigon, Great Tusk, Rotom-Mow, Poltegeist, Tyranitar, Farigiraf, Azumarill, Forretress, and Dondozo. Meanwhile, my own Birbs are Chien-Pao, who cannot Terra, Hawlucha, my own Iron Moth, Salamence, Lucario, Gardevoir, Florges, Magnezone, Electros, Tinglu, and Slowbro. Looking at the speeds, I think I probably have the slight edge in speed here. I've got a couple extra mons above that base 100, but both of our teams have access to plenty of speed boosting, and the speeds are all close enough that investment in items could make a big difference. Let me just get your opinion. Kind of, what did you think of your team in this matchup? What did you think looked good? What were you scared of?
Yeah, so the biggest thing to look at, of course, is that Iron Moth Ditto. And yeah, looking at the matchups each one has, it's kind of tough because Iron Moth versus Iron Moth, the best thing they have to hit each other with is Psychic, but that's actually not the best coverage into our teams otherwise at all. So just having to run that if we want to win that Ditto, and then having 3 other move slots, each Moth probably has pretty hard 4 move slot syndrome in this battle, which definitely I think could come up quite a bit. And then as far as just the rest of my team goes, I did build my draft to be pretty decent against the Legends of Ruin, of which you have 2, so that is pretty nice for me. And I do have a couple things that can break through the defensive core of Tinglu and Slowbro, but it is awkward because things like Hydreigon and Rotom that want to break through those are definitely checked pretty hard by Chien-Pao and Salamence and Lucario and things like that. So it's definitely going to be kind of a push and pull trade war, I think.
Mm-hmm. Were there any Pokemon like on your team that you knew right away like just weren't coming?
Yeah, I think that Rotom and Kilowattrel were both kind of not brings for me. I did bring Kilowattrel against the Chien-Pao earlier in the season, but I just think that Chien-Pao really limits those two, and so does Iron Moth, honestly, with Rotom. And Kilowattrel's just not strong enough. Rotom, it's not quite the speed tier I want. I know it beats Tinglu and Slowbro pretty well. Maybe outspeeds Magnezone, maybe does something to Florges and status it. But those two were pretty easy to cut out. And then I think the only other quick cut was Tyranitar. It is a decent Iron Moth check, but I am vaguely aware that Iron Moth has some pretty decent coverage for it. So outside of that matchup, it's not doing amazing anywhere. So I kind of cut it pretty quick.
All right, and was there like a starting point that you're like, these are the mons that are definitely coming that I'm gonna kind of build around?
Yeah, so Azumarill was kind of my starting point because of that Tinglu matchup, and it just chunked it down so well. The fairy resists on your team are not extensive, so I felt like Play Rough was pretty spammable. Azumarill is also a pretty good Chien-Pao answer. And as you'll see with the build I ended up going with, it's not terribly beat out by Slowbro, which we'll see how that plays out. And from there, kind of filled it out with other breakers. Hydreigon and Great Tusk are obviously great damage dealers. Iron Moth is kind of almost needed for that Ditto, honestly. And then from there, I kind of decided I needed to fill out the rest defensively, so that's kind of where the initial thoughts came from between, something of Dondozo, Forretress, and Farigiraf, but those 3 were kind of bouncing around for my last 2 slots.
Sure. All right, well, kind of looking at it from my end, I was looking at my team and, well, first off, I'm really not happy about having to go against a Azumarill for the second week in a row. I had to cheese the first one and was not looking against going against another one. But I was looking at my team and, like, Jianpao is just always reliable, but it definitely needs to watch out for Azumarill and, like, any mons running bulk on your team. Like, it's good against, like, offensive Great Tusk, but, like, against bulky Great Tusk or, like, anything with a berry, it can get caught out and KO'd pretty easily. Iron Moth, like you said, it has to come for the mirror. I mean, it's just, you gotta have fun with that. But also, yeah, it looks good running. I was thinking about, choice sets. I was thinking about setup sets with, like, agility or booster energy and fiery dance, or just, yeah, like you said, Iron Moth gets actually very good coverage, so there was a bunch of different things it could do in the match. Ting Lu, also just reliable. Looking at your team, I was thinking maybe offensive Assault Fest again. Slowbro is my defensive wall, and then, oh, wait, that's most of the Pokemon I bring all the time. Electros is good for Dozo and Azu with interesting coverage. Mence looks good with spammable dragon moves, but Dragon Dance doesn't work against on Dozo. Magnezone is great for Dozo and Azu with some decent utility moves. Halucha can't really set up with Dozo around, but maybe a defensive set could work. And then, Florges and Gardevoir and Lucario, none of those looked real great here. So, I mean, it was really, pretty quickly, I narrowed it down to, kind of the 5 mons that I always bring, and then probably one of the electric types, just because that Dondozo and Azumarill look like such big problems for me. It's actually interesting to hear you talk about, like, Kilowattrel, and not bringing it and, making that decision somewhat early, because, like, I wasn't say I was expecting Kilowattrel, but I definitely saw something that, like, Scarf, Hurricane or something could just be pretty effective, against my team. Coverage for, something that's my own Scarfers, because I'm probably not running Scarf Qianpao, although I did love running Scarf Zeraora when I had it. But yeah, no, I mean, I was definitely afraid of the Azu. I was expecting the Dondozo. I thought offensive Great Tusk looks really good into my team with, like, Headlong Rush, Close Combat, Ice Spinner, and Rapid Spin. And yeah, so, I mean, I definitely was just kind of preparing for most of the things on your team. I think, the way I've been favoring so many core mons that I just keep bringing week in and week out is not a whole lot of room for, like, strict counter teaming and, like, hard predicting what you're going to bring. I kind of just have to go for good versatility on each of the sets and hope it works out in the match. But with that out of the way, let's actually see what we each decided to bring here. And we'll start it off with your Newport Noctowls. Why don't you run me through your team and kind of explain how you built all of these mons?
Sure. So I'll just go through the whole thing. Iron Moth, Farigiraf, Fortress, Great Tusk, Hydreigon, and Azumarill. I think the big standout here is probably that I left Dondozo behind, and my main reasoning there was because Dondozo in the team builder does kind of limit things already. So I was kind of making the hard call that you would not be bringing quite as much setup as as you would against a normal team. For example, that Salamence probably needs to slot a special move like Draco somewhere, and I was thinking maybe that kind of reduces the ability for you to run Dragon Dance as a threatening sweeper. So I was just gonna say, like, yep, I'm gonna assume that he doesn't have any setup moves, and yeah, Dondozo isn't necessary in that case. What do you think of that decision?
I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting it. I think it makes, like hearing you talk about that, it's like, yeah, no, I mean, I think your thought process there is actually really good, and I think that's like one of the most interesting things about Draft League is when you can like strategically leave something on the bench and still have it like seriously impact the match. Because yeah, I was not expecting you to leave it behind, and definitely I was thinking it's like, all right, well, guess I'm not running Dragon Dance this week, and boy, man, I wish I did, because that would have been nice.
It was definitely a worry going into the match for me. I was very, very much hoping that you didn't end up running it. But anyway, starting here with Iron Moth, it's a 4-attack set with booster energy for speed. I really like the idea of just having an excuse to go max speed timid, since there's a speed tie anyway with the other Iron Moth. So I might as well say, if I want to win that matchup, I'll go booster energy, boost that speed up, and win with Psychic, hopefully, because unless there's like a Specs or something like that, neither Psychic should be one-hit KOing the other Iron Moth, so whoever outspeeds should win that most of the time. So that was my logic there. Other than that, the other slots, Fiery Dance, of course, just having pretty good coverage and the boosting potential, because this is a potential win condition if I can bring it in the late game with that booster energy still active. So maybe get that +1. Of course, that would require Ting Lu to be chipped down quite a bit, because even with Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam does not do that much damage to it. And then, of course, we have Sludge Wave, which was my coverage of choice for Florges and Gardevoir. I know that you said that they didn't look that good in this matchup, but I was actually a little concerned about Gardevoir. It has that really good special attack stat, and just good coverage in general for my team, so I just had to be prepared for it in some way. Yeah, what do you think of this Moth?
I mean, I like it a lot. I'm a little... I'm not in love with booster energy just as an item. I find it to be a little limiting in match, just because like I find myself like thinking like, well, can I afford to, you know, send it in and proc it now, even if, you know, like the Mon just has a really good matchup. But I think this is a real good set, and I think it works here because, yeah, no, like if you late game, if you can do that and, you know, get a Fiery Dance boost, I mean, what, I think Terra Fairy Gleam with a +1 boost probably does like 40-ish% to Ting Lu.
Something like that, yeah.
So like that's not, it's definitely, you need a fair amount of chip, but it's not that much. So I think the only awkward thing about it is trying to preserve that booster energy, or not.
For sure, and we'll probably see in the battle, but it was kind of a very much a decision every turn of like, this Iron Moth looks good right now, but should I bring it in and use up that booster energy or wait until the end game? And that was kind of a hard decision point to make at some times. Moving on though, I got Farigiraf. It is a specially defensive set, full special defense, and this is mainly my answer to things like Iron Moth, Gardevoir, and maybe Special Salamence if that shows up. And basically the point here, switch into those threats. Farigiraf doesn't take that much damage from any of them, except for Iron Moth, which if I get hit by a Fiery Dance into a +1 Fiery Dance, that's actually, if you're very offensive, that has a decent chance of KOing from there. So I have Terra Rock with Sap Sipper, because it resists the fire move, it resists potential poison coverage, even though I don't think that's what your Moth would be running. But Sap Sipper is the main coverage there to prevent the Energy Ball, which I think is decently likely from your Iron Moth. So it makes a good answer there. And I mean, if Salamence's special, Terra Rock does help as a neat little flying resist for Hurricane, although, you know, still weak to some other coverage moves.
Sure.
As for the set, Wish Protect is kind of obvious, and Future Sight is great pressure if I can set it up with a Wish, because I can kind of pivot out into a threat that now has a Future Sight behind it, and maybe even a Wish. That's kind of situational, but could just be really nice offensive pressure. And then, of course, Thunder Wave, kind of my tech of choice, because since I didn't bring Dondozo, I was worried about something like if you really do bring Dragon Dance Salamence, like I have one way to kind of limit it and just prevent that from steamrolling my whole team. So that's kind of the set.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I mean, I think when you first sent me the team, I was looking at the Terra Rock, and I was really confused by it. It was like, well, I feel like there are maybe better uh ways to, you know, resist fire, but also like hearing you say like, oh, it also resists the poison coverage. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I definitely wasn't expecting Fergaraf. I was not prepped for it at all. Mostly just I think, you know, I think that was a little bit of, you know, a mistake on my part, because I definitely throughout the season and like during the draft and everything, I thought it was a pretty decent Pokemon. And I just didn't look into it too much. The really only thing I have to say about this set is that it really doesn't have anything to do against Ting Lu or Slowbro, who I both have been bringing pretty much every week. So I think that's a little bit risky to run a set that kind of gives me 2 free switches, but I mean, I definitely trust your ability as a coach, and, you know, Thunderwave, Future Sight, Wish, you have plenty of ways to sort of predict your own switch coming in if I get those free switches, so I don't think it's too bad, but probably a little more passive than I would have wanted to run, but I think it's still good.
I think that's a good point, yeah, and that was the hope, is to set things up on those Slowbro and Ting Lu switch-ins, particularly Ting Lu, because Wish could maybe set up into a great Tusk switch-in. Although, yeah, I do get it. A Future Sight was at some point Energy Ball, I think, or
okay.
I don't know if it gets that, but Grass Knot maybe, just to get a little bit of chip on a switch-in like that. But I just appreciated the offensive support a little more. I will admit this is a pretty passive set, and it is just meant to pivot into Iron Moth and Gardevoir if that shows up, and switch out afterwards. So kind of a necessary evil for me, because my especially defensive pieces are not amazing in this matchup. So just wanted to have that insurance there.
Yeah, it's fair.
So next up, you might be looking at the next set and questioning it a little bit, but this is Loaded Dice Max Attack Adamant Fortress. And this is my lead of choice, actually, because I was looking through all of your battles through the whole season that you had, and I noticed that you kind of trended towards Qianpao, Iron Moth, or maybe sometimes Salamence leads, and I didn't really have anything that covered all of that with one slot, except for this, which does live any hit with Sturdy, and then it hits all of them super effectively. Pin Missile for that Qianpao, Earthquake for the Iron Moth, and Ice Spinner for the Salamence. And this actually does kind of win most matchups one-on-one from full health, at least, just because there's not too much that resists this stuff. The only things really are Electros, which probably would 2-hit KO, and I wouldn't be able to 2-hit KO back necessarily, but I wasn't quite expecting that, and Florges, which I would just set up Spikes on, which is my last slot, because if I do get a big hit off on something and then maybe you see what's happening and switch out, I'll be able to set up Spikes on the switch. The main point of this set, it is kind of a gimmick, but I just figured I needed something crazy. And yeah, this was kind of the choice. It is, you know, like I said, a gimmick, because if I'm staying in on something and going for this attack, I'm really trying to break through something, but I can't exactly choose what that is, because I kind of just have to stay in and attack. But the hope is that I break one thing, and then the rest of the team can exploit whatever hole it opens up,
Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
No, I absolutely love this set. I think it's real cool, real creative, and actually real effective. The damage it can do against my team is pretty surprising, like you said. And for several of the things on my team, you don't even necessarily need that sturdy, pretty much, except for Moth or like Salamence if it's running a coverage move like Fire Blast or something. But Pin Missile, yeah, chunks dark types, also absolutely chunks Slowbro. Earthquake hits, you know, any steel types I bring. It hits Moth trying to switch in on this. Ice Spinner for Ments, and Tinglu, and then just reliable spikes. I think this is a really, really cool set, and I'm just blown away by it. I think it's great.
Yeah, one note I'll make is that the speed is for outrunning 8-speed Ting Lu, so hopefully I can outrun that. This is a nice option select in front of either Ting Lu or Slowbro, because you can kind of switch it in on either of them, just saying like, oh, this is kind of a defensive pivot, and then I can kind of preserve the illusion until I go for that faster pin missile and hopefully give big damage to one of them.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, I had one win condition with the Iron Moth potentially, but this is probably the main one I'm looking at, is Expert Belt Great Tusk. Terra Dark knockoff is my way of breaking through Slowbro, if that is still around in the end game. But other than that, you got Headlong Rush knockoff Ice Spinner as my 3-move coverage, and Rapid Spin to boost speed. I do have enough to outrun Chen Pao after a Rapid Spin boost. And then from there, hopefully, a few things need to be chipped down a little bit. Like I said, that Electros is a bit of a problem if it shows up, but once again, I'm not expecting it too much. But Terra Dark knockoff doesn't quite KO it if it's bulky. Salamis could get in the way with Intimidate for that Ice Spinner. And Slowbro, even with Terra Dark knockoff, does need to be chipped a little bit. But if those things are kind of worn down over the course of the battle, then Great Tusk could just go for a sweep right there. I don't know if you'd be running any choice scarfs, but the hope would be that you're not, and that Rapid Spin would just boost past everything. What do you think of this set?
I was definitely expecting something along the lines of this. I was real scared of offensive Great Tusk. When I've gone up against Great Tusk before in the season, it wasn't running an offensive set, and I was really thankful for that, because I think this does big damage into my team. The Terra Dark knockoff, I think, is pretty interesting. I was definitely, in my head, I was just, expecting straight, like fighting coverage there to hit Qian Pao harder and Ting Lu harder, because I think this Headlong Rush is, I think, a roll to KO a Qian Pao without much bulk, and with speed I usually have some bulk, so I thought you might just have the fighting move for just the insurance there, as well as stronger into Ting Lu, but I think this is just real strong and real scary. I love Expert Belt as an item, I just personally do, and so I think this is a great, very scary set.
Yeah, that note on the fighting coverage is definitely very important. Not having coverage to one-hit KO Ting Lu and not necessarily being able to one-hit KO Chen Pao is important. But my thought there was that hopefully, Chen Pao comes in once or twice and maybe gets chipped down a little bit beforehand. And for Ting Lu, it does really suck not having the fighting coverage. But I'm thinking, well, I'm going to try to get a win condition with both Iron Moth and Great Tusk, so maybe one can chip down the Ting Lu for the other. We'll see what happens there.
Sure.
As for the next slot, I have Hydreigon here. This is a pretty bulky set, max HP and enough speed to outrun Lucario, with not much special attack investment, but it is just enough to 2-hit KO Slowbro, even if it's holding Colbur Berry for the first hit. And so the coverage, it's Dark Pulse mainly for that Slowbro and decent neutral coverage otherwise. And the second move, the other main attacking move I have, is unfortunately Focus Blast. And this is just pretty much to cover Ting Lu switch-ins. It doesn't do that much damage, but it is just such a good move into that slot based on the base power and the coverage. I hate running Focus Blast so much. But it is just, unfortunately, the best move I had. It covers the Ting Lu. It actually covers Lucario, along with my Terra typing, which I will get into in a second. And it technically covers the Qian Pao. I don't know how many times over it kills that, but, and then, as for the other two slots, Stealth Rock, my Great Tusk is, locked into an offensive role, and Fortress is running Spikes. You do only have one hazard remover with Halucha, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And then Hydreigon is defensive enough, is pivoting into enough things, I think, that it can set Stealth Rocks up on a switch. And the point of this is mainly, at least early game, to pivot into Slowbro. And then U-Turn, of course, just gets me out because I'm willing to bet you switch out of Slowbro in that matchup.
Sure.
The Terra type, I wanted a fighting resisting type because it can mix things up against things like Halucha, maybe Qian Pao going for an option to select with Sacred Sword, and I guess that's about it. But it's always kind of down to something like Fairy, Poison, or Ghost, and I ended up going with Ghost because it is immune to Lucario's Extreme Speed. Not that I necessarily thought Lucario was going to show up with that set, like a Swords Dance Extreme Speed, but just in case, it was something I wanted to have in the back pocket.
Yeah, no, that checks out. I definitely... Hydreigon was not super high up on the list of mons I thought you were going to bring. Just like Moth obviously has Dazzling Gleam for it, Salamence outspeeds it, Chien Pao outspeeds it. Tinglu is a pretty decent wall against it, so I didn't think you wouldn't bring it, but wasn't something I was thinking would be like a big part of your game plan. I think it's real interesting. When I saw it in the match, I definitely was like, all right, well, this is going to be, you know, probably pretty standard, just especially offensive Hydreigon, because my dragon resists aren't many or frequently coming. So I was like, all right, well, Draco, yeah, Draco seems, you know, pretty good. U-turn to, like, get out. So I think the set you ended up bringing was very interesting. And yeah, aside from Focus Blast, seems pretty reliable. I just wasn't, when I saw it in TP, it was like, and then when you sent me the team, it was like, wait, he was bulky Hydreigon? What? So very cool.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a fair consideration. And yeah, offensive Hydreigon actually, yeah, despite the good coverage, doesn't look that good in this matchup, especially with Salamence and Iron Moth just outspeeding it.
Yeah.
So the main point of this set was definitely it's a Slowbro switch in. As we mentioned before, Fergraf is not doing much in that matchup, so I needed something good to kind of pivot into that threat. And then for the next set, I have Choice Band Azumarill. And the main point here is actually to just break with Play Rough and hopefully open up some holes that Iron Moth and Great Tusk can take advantage of later in the battle. This is also a decent Chien Pao answer. It's not the best because I'm not running that much HP investment, but it can switch in on that once and maybe smack a switch in that matchup.
Sure.
So Play Rough is the main breaking move. It gets pretty good coverage outside of, I think, the Iron Moth, which would be hard-pressed to switch in, and the Magnezone, which I'm not sure if it's going to come or not. And then with a Choice Band in Max Attack, it actually, at least on paper, has a shot of 2-hit KOing Max HP Slowbro, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
Waterfall is the other coverage move, just gets coverage, of course, against things like the Iron Moth, the Magnezone, and it's Waterfall over Liquidation because I actually do think there are a few things that are slower than me that I don't one-hit KO with either Waterfall or Liquidation, and you know, maybe I could cheese a matchup with a flinch. We'll see. But really, like, it's just a bonus, and I didn't really feel that the extra 5 base power was I was missing out on anything there.
Sure.
Aqua Jet is there for the Iron Moth, of course. And the last slot is Copycat, because I really thought I could switch in Azumarill on a Tinglu setting up spikes, and on your switch to Slowbro, set up my own spikes using that Copycat, which would be very funny if it happens, but it was honestly just kind of a filler move since I don't really need other coverage. And then Terra Fairy, because I really like the power of boosted Play Rough, and enough speed to outrun a paralyzed Salamence, probably a little unnecessary, but it did get me some nice creep against like Electros, which I speed tie with, and the Magnezone, just in case like those come with a little bit of speed investment. So yeah, that's the set.
Yeah, no, aside from the Copycat being very funny, trying to lock yourself into hazards on your Choice Band set when you have both hazards already on your team in other places is very bold, I'll say. But yeah, no, I mean, I was going over, you know, my match from the Johto finals. Is like, yeah, I mean, really, Azumarill needs Play Rough and Aqua Jet, and that's really the moves it needs. Who cares what you put in the rest of the slots? The speed, I actually really like that for, you know, Paralyzed Salamence. Definitely something that I was not prepared for. I was prepared for some speed on Azumarill, but definitely didn't think it would have that much. So when we get into my team, we'll see, you know, how much that could come into play. Any, you know, kind of thoughts you have about your kind of team as a whole here?
Yeah, so one big note I'll make is that the team with Azumarill and Fortress, it looks a lot better into Qian Pao than it actually is, because those two are not amazing defensive pivots as I built them. So I'm going to have to play very carefully around that. I'm also like, you know, every match I'm very wary of big special attackers. So Iron Moth and Gardevoir, if it shows up. That was actually kind of like the 7th slot that I had for you, just because of its coverage and power. If those show up, like it's going to be a little tough to play around. So that's kind of my main worry going into the match.
Sure, no, that's fair. All right, well, let's move on to what I'm bringing. All right, and we'll start off my team with my own Moth. Definitely had to bring it here. We've got Max special attack, timid with enough speed to outspeed Hydreigon. Like you were talking about, you know, the Moths obviously would speed tie each other, and they only have Psychic to hit each other with, and I decided that I didn't really need to risk speed tying your Moth, just because I had things like Tinglu that, you know, could deal with it pretty effectively anyway. You can see how a little bit ahead I've got an Akaberry on my Magnezone. Like, I just thought I had other reasons, ways of dealing with it. I didn't need to kind of throw my Moth into the 50-50 there. Energy Ball and Dazzling Gleam hit key weaknesses. Flamethrower is for Fortress, and Psychic hits your opposing Moth. With the Terra Grass there to potentially, you know, take a Psychic from your Moth and fire back with my own. Also, eat a Ground-type move, get the boosted Energy Ball into things like Dondozo or Great Tusk. With then just the heavy-duty boots, because, as you said, my hazard control is not very good, so I need to protect my Moth somehow. I had, at first, thought of setup set with something like Agility, and like a booster energy for special attack, but in the end, I decided to just go with something a bit more reliable here. What do you think of my own Moth?
I like it. This just makes sense for the set you're bringing. I mentioned before that the 4 move slot syndrome is very real with both of our Moths, and we see that coming into play here with Dazzling Gleam and Psychic hitting very specific targets. Energy Ball, I do have, you know, 2 water types and a Great Tusk, and Flamethrower with Stab. It's unfortunate that with neither of our Moths were we able to like get any utility moves. I do love the agility set. I love U-Turn and Morning Sun on Iron Moth. But you know, just for the matchups that we have, I think 4 move coverage just makes the most sense, and this is potentially a devastating offensive piece for you.
Yeah, no, I think, let me look back here. I'm not sure, really, the thing that, like, looking back on it right now, like, I'm not super sure about the, Flamethrower compared to something, like Fiery Dance, to help with, like, a potential late-game, sweep, or just, like, Overheat for, big damage, because, you know, fire into your team, like, the Fortress, like, it doesn't matter what fire-type move I, click, and, I mean, I guess it's, you know, like, for things like, for Farigiraf, for Kilowattrel, you know, just, like, the consistent neutral was pretty, is pretty nice, but I wonder if I could have gotten a little bit, more utility there with a different fire move. Yep.
That's a fair point. I do think I really personally like Fiery Dance just for that chance to boost and become a monster. But
yeah.
I definitely agree with your Flamethrower option. It's a nice consistent stab, which is just your most powerful neutral attack, and you don't want that to be potentially missing. I mean, even Overheat with 90 is just it can be a little frightening to go for in certain key matchups. So I definitely get Flamethrower. You know, strong, it's consistent.
Yep. All right, well, moving on to Magnezone, who I liked in this matchup because, you know, like I said, I'm worried about those water types, and also compared to Electros, who speed ties as Azumarill, this has a little bit of speed on it. which I like there, as well as, you know, just analytic lets it hit real hard. Sturdy would have been nice, but didn't trust, you know, my ability to keep hazards off, and as well as, you know, just taking chip from random sources. I thought, you know, analytic was better value. We've got max special attack modest with a little speed to outcreep Azu with the rest into bulk. Obviously not enough to outcreep your Azu because you're running a fair amount of speed on it. Reflect will help my Mons with just giving them some breathing room against things like Azumarill, like Great Tusk. Analytics, Thunderbolt, and Flash Cannon hit pretty hard, and then we got Terra Grass, Terra Blast to hit Great Tusk, as well as resist some ground moves, and it still makes use of that Akaberry to take a super effective fire-type attack from that Moth and fire back with a huge Thunderbolt. What do you think about Magnezone here?
Love this set. The type synergy with the Terra type, like going grass and still making use of the Akaberry, that's so cool to me. But just overall for this Magnezone set, yeah, very, very powerful. Thunderbolt and Flash Cannon, what do I have outside of, I guess, Kilowattrel that even switches into that multiple times? I really don't have much counterplay to this because it does survive against most things, especially making good use of the Terra type for Great Tusk, and it just tanks a hit and probably outtrades something. Reflect is great too because I think I would probably try to switch Great Tusk in on this, and you could set up a Reflect, even get the Terra Grass afterwards, and kind of just win that matchup from there. So I totally get it. And yeah, I didn't really see this coming, I'll be honest, and I probably should have because, you know, I have been known to bring my Azumarill and Dondozo over the whole season, and this is a great answer to them. So yeah, good set.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to Chien Pao. Chien Pao's got max attack adamant with enough speed to outspeed +1 Tyranitar. I've got Ice Spinner and Sacred Sword for just kind of general offense and coverage. Ice Shard is my priority of choice this match, just because, you know, I was like, well, he could bring something like Scarf Kilowattrel, or, you know, running the Adamant, I don't outspeed Kilowattrel anyway, so Ice Shard is just nice insurance if it does happen to come. Also helps with, like, Scarf Hydreigon, and then I've got Ruination in the last slot to just cover switch-ins on things like Dondozo, things like Fortress. Only thing I see about this is that, like, you know, it would have been nice to have something like Crunch for the Iron Moth, but I think I've got enough other ways to pressure it that I'm not super worried about that. And then, of course, just heavy-duty boots to, again, protect it from all of those hazards I expect to come. Was this kind of a Chien Pao you were expecting to come?
Yeah, this is pretty close to what I was expecting. Of course, I was expecting Crunch over Ruination, but I do really like that tech. My matchup against Chien Pao on paper is pretty solid with Dondozo, Azu, and Fortress, so having that way to dent them for 50% health is just so nice. And yeah, pretty standard Chien Pao set. I think that with the Iron Moth on my side, having the booster energy and no other speed boosting natural things, like no scarfs or anything like that, once that's used up, this is the fastest thing in the matchup, and that just makes it so threatening, so hard to switch into, especially with that Ruination. So yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, moving on to my other Ruin Legendary, we've got Tinglu, of course. It's running that offensive Assault Vest I've been liking in the playoffs here. One thing about this set is, Earthquake and Throat Chop are, for decent coverage. Stone Edge is, to, again, just kind of, coverage, for something like, Kilowattrel, although probably, could have gone with something like, Body Press or Fighting Kite move specifically for, Hydreigon, who, of course, Earthquake and Throat Chop don't do great into. And then Facade is kind of a leftover from when I was experimenting with some stuff. It really should be Ruination. There's no reason to not be running Ruination here in that last slot. I guess, I was thinking, well, maybe if there's Toxic Spikes or something, or I just get, random status from, any one of your Pokemon, but really should be Ruination. And then Terra Fairy just for that fighting resist and overall decent defensive typing there. And I'm running a lot of HP and special defense, really just because of that Hydreigon and that Iron Moth, but definitely intended to be a bit more of a, not breaker, but definitely trying to get consistent chip in throughout the game.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely didn't see the more attack invested adamant nature coming. And the Tinglu in general is it's such a good piece in this matchup. It's very limiting to the game plan that I'm going for with Iron Moth and Hydreigon chipping things down. So it's definitely going to be tough for me to break through. I do agree with your points that Stone Edge and Facade, I see the utility of Stone Edge for sure, but not having a great way to hit Hydreigon, which I think this would be like a main switch in for. That's a bit weird to me, and I was surprised to see that. And then of course, yeah, Ruination just does make sense. I agree. Of note also is that this actually does speed tie with the Fortress that I brought.
It does.
Yeah, we'll see if that plays out, huh?
Yeah, very, very funny coincidence there. And then we move on to Salamence. I am running a special Salamence here. I've got a little bit of a mix, just because Iron Moth is pretty specially naturally bulky, so I've got max special attack and a lot of speed, again, to outspeed Hydreigon still. Then I've got Hurricane and Draco Meteor, which are actually both fairly spammable into your team. Earthquake covers that Iron Moth, trying to take advantage of me having drop special attack after a Draco Meteor, or just trying to use its special bulk. And then Substitute in the last slot, because I thought that Mence would force a lot of switches, especially early before you know my set into something like Azu or Dondozo. So I thought Substitute would be a fun way to take advantage of that, and then be able to fire off some of those very spammable moves. I was really close. It was, do I run a special set with physical coverage or a physical set with special coverage? And with you leaving Dondozo behind, I wish I had run the more physical set with the Draco Meteor coverage, but I still think this is a pretty solid set overall. What about you?
This is a great set. Salamence in general is just such a big threat thanks to its versatility in this matchup. I think it's such an underrated draft league mon. But Hurricane and Draco, nice and spammable into my team, I agree. And Substitute is really nice with the leftovers. I know you're not running Boots, so you can't, switch into Rock Stomp many times. But, if you're staying in with a Substitute for, a couple turns in a row, just firing off your strong attacks, that's enough net gain and recovery that I think that's a good play. And then, yeah, I agree that this is just such a hard set to switch into until I really know what it's doing. Just because, if I make the wrong move, if Farigiraf switches in on a very physical set, that's terrible for me. And if Azu would switch in on something like a Choice Banded Dual Wing Grid or Earthquake, that's also terrible. So this is just such a hard thing to predict around, and Substitute takes advantage of that so well.
Yeah, so pretty happy with that. And then moving on to Slowbro in the last slot. Of course, he's my standard defensive wall. He's got Ice Beam for Hydreigon and Grass Knot for the Waters, with Surf and Slack Off being just standard coverage, stab, and recovery. Terra type Water to take away a Dark weakness or a Bug weakness. And Rocky Helmet, just because really wanting to get extra chip on things like Great Tusk, on things like Azumarill, that I will probably be switching into with this. Pretty standard Slowbro set, maybe running a little bit more coverage than usual, but what do you think about it?
Yep, I agree. Pretty standard. I was, not necessarily expecting 3 different offensive moves, but it actually does make a lot of sense in the matchup because you have a couple of things that you can just very safely switch in on, and then I'll have to switch out, and you can bop whatever switches in with your move of choice. So that makes a lot of sense. It's definitely a limiting piece for me, especially that Terra Water. If that plays out and you manage to use that against my Great Tusk, that is pretty tough to break through after that. So we'll see if that becomes a problem. And yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. It's the slower set I was basically expecting. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at my team kind of overall, yeah, I think there are a couple move choices here and there that I probably could have gotten some value out of, but yeah, no, I mean, my plan was that you have a couple of I think, kind of we both had the same plan where we're like, all right, my opponent has, like two like walls that like I need to get through, and if I get through them, then I look very good. And it's kind of just going to be a question of whose walls go down at the right times, and who's got the right offensive pieces left at the end of the battle. Anything you want to say before we get into the match?
I definitely agree. It's going to be a trade war just to try to take down those walls first, and it's going to be a very hectic battle. So
Yep.
let's take a look.
All right. Okay, here we are at team preview. For myself, I'm looking across and I'm seeing no Dondozo. Really has me wishing that I had brought Dragon Dance, but still happy with my men's set. Wasn't expecting the Farigiraf. Don't exactly know what it's here for. Could be something like a setup set, like Calm Mind and Sword Power, but probably just Wish Protect and wondering kind of what the other two moves it's bringing are. But, aside from that, everything else makes pretty good sense. You have a lot of versatile mons, the Tusk, the Moth, the Hydreigon, the Ezreal, that they really have to be careful and scout out, kind of get an idea of what those mons are doing. But thinking about my own lead, Moth is good into most things, especially your hazard setters, Fortress, Great Tusk, Hydreigon. Moth is very good into all of those, so it seems like a pretty good lead for me. Really only doesn't want to see the Azu or I guess the Farigiraf, but didn't think you'd be leading those. What were you thinking here at this team preview?
Yeah, so looking at your side, I see the 5 Pokemon that you've kind of favored over the course of the season, which makes a lot of sense. Not seeing the Halucha here is actually, like, it's not necessarily something I was expecting, but it's kind of nice just to say, like, I can set up some hazards early on and maybe chip down some things, learn about some boots, so that is kind of an early strategy I'm looking to pull off. As for the lead matchup, I do have the dedicated Fortress lead, so that is my plan. And yeah, it just makes sense on like the mons you brought.
All right, well, let's get into it here. We are going to see here Iron Moth and Fortress come out. I'm going to actually immediately switch into Salamence, though, as you go for that Earthquake coverage you had. Myself, I was thinking, it's like, all right, well, I know he's got Sturdy. I can't take him out. Is there anything it can do? Oh, wait, it probably gets a ground move. Well, it'd be nice to, take this down to 1 HP, but switch to Salamence, get the... if he goes for a ground move, great. If he goes for hazards, I have this in before anything, and then, I can get a nice substitute off, or if he switches in to something else, like Hydreigon trying to take a fire move, then Mence is still great here. What were you thinking kind of that turn?
Yeah, good play on your part. I thought about the possibility of you switching out, fearing the Sturdy Earthquake combo, but I just, I told myself before the match that I really can't afford to not hit what's in front of me with Fortress, just because of the nature of this set. So, Spike setup was a possibility here, but I really just had to click my move of what was in front of me. So, unfortunately, it didn't work out, but I am still kind of preserving the illusion that I am a more defensive set that just happens to be running Earthquake as coverage. So that's something I can kind of keep in the back pocket for now.
Yeah. All right, and then we go into turn 2. Fortress here. This is, you go out into Farigarath, and I just get a real, safe substitute. Was super free for me. I can hit whatever comes in. Why'd you go out, why'd you choose Farigarath here?
Yeah, so obviously Ice Spinner was an option for me, but with the Intimidate drop, it actually wouldn't have been KOing, and I felt that, you know, in the Salamis matchup is a decent time to reveal that strategy of the offensive fortress, but I figured there was a better time later in the battle to do it. And as for the switch in, I thought about Azumarill for, you know, a potential, like, it takes any move decently well, fire coverage or maybe a general dragon move. But I went with Farigarath because I was kind of predicting, like, maybe this is a Hurricane, which does hit Fortress on the weaker special side, so having a specially defensive money is great. The substitute set off alarm bells in my head and made me really panic because I was like, is this a sub-Dragon Dance set? Because if so, like, this is a terrible situation for me. So up until, like, the next turn after this, until we figure out more about the set, I am panicking.
Yeah, no, if I had Dragon Dance here, man, I would be, real excited to be here. But we are going to see, I am just going to throw off a Hurricane, scout what this wants to do. You throw off a Future Sight, and I do see that this is a specially defensive Farigarath. I'm a special Salamence. It's revealed Future Sight and probably has Wish Protect. And this is quickly shaping up to be a very awkward matchup.
Yep, especially with Substitute here, the fact that I can't really Thunder Wave this, which actually was kind of a strategy I had for Azu to outspeed later, and Future Sight is my only way to break the sub. It is very, very awkward, these two staring each other down.
Yep, so we're going to see, I mean, I'm still here behind my sub, might as well keep attacking, getting decent damage off with the Hurricane. Of course, you have the Wish. We're just going to kind of keep plowing through some of these turns. You do have the Protect. I go for the Draco just to kind of keep you honest, because that KOs if you happen to not have it.
Right.
Future Sight is going to break the sub, which is going to bring us both back up to basically full. And, well, how are you seeing this matchup? Because at this point in the game, like, as a player, I'm not great against stall, so I find these just kind of back and forth, nothing's happening, like, really awkward as far as, like, do I switch out? Do I make prediction? Do I just stay in and, you know, go for, you know, like, a crit or, like, confusion on the Hurricane? What was going through your head, kind of at this point?
Right, yeah, it is awkward, and for now, I'm kind of trying to gauge, like, oh, is he staying in with Salamence? Is he going to commit to this matchup? And then if so, I'm kind of thinking I want to set up a kind of a situation where I can pivot out to a different threat that actually, you know, threatens more damage on this immediately, potentially with a Wish to pass to it and maybe a Future Sight up. So that's kind of my end goal out of, like, maneuvering these couple turns here.
Sure. Well, we're going to keep going on. I set up another sub just because I'm kind of trying to get some more scouting. You go for the Wish there. I've got a sub, might as well keep attacking, keep going for some hacks. You accidentally click Wish. I think you had said that you had thought you had a Future Sight up instead, or...
Yeah, I thought I had set Future Sight up. Complete mistake on my end. I was over in, like, Calc land figuring out what I want to switch into this thing, and I was like, oh, it's my turn, click Wish, and it's like, oh, you already have one up. Oops.
Yep. Well, we're here again, and I'm still fishing for a confusion or something to be able to break through this. Worried a little about a bit about, you know, kind of like my PP situation. We can see what I've got 12 Hurricanes left. I can't, you know, keep throwing Hurricanes at this thing forever. But, you know, Hurricane is you know, I've got plenty left. I'm just going to need to be thinking about that kind of in the future as it keeps going. I also, you know, have Earthquake for decent damage. I think it does about a third, but I don't want to reveal that exactly yet, so I'm kind of just fishing for hacks, honestly.
Sure, and I'm doing that a little bit too because I'm kind of looking for the Hurricane miss on my Wish setup so I can, you know, pass that out to something else while keeping Farigarath relatively healthy.
Yep.
So that's on my end. We're both looking for something to go our favor right now.
Yep. Turn 9, and well, there the Hurricanes start missing. You get that future side up. You have the Wish coming in, but I'm still behind a sub, so sure, we'll get the misses out right now. You know, we'll get the bad Hurricanes out of the way while we're nice and safe behind the sub. And finally here, you switch out to Azu, who does have to take a Hurricane, but the future sight is going to break the sub, and the Wish is going to bring Azu right back up to full. Very well done on your part there.
Yeah, I was really happy with this turn. You know, once Fergraph had been set up with the future sight and Wish ready to pass on to the next Pokemon, I was happy to switch that out. Wasn't expecting to, you know, be able to do that from full health. Just because of your misses, I was able to do that. So, you know, it worked out very well for me there.
Yeah, something that I probably, when you switched out, I was like, okay, fine, I get the way. And then the future sight broke this up and was like, oh, you know, I probably should have actually been keeping track of all of that. I probably could have predicted the switch here to Azu, but I don't have a whole lot to, you know, kind of take advantage of that anyway, so I don't think a big deal on my part. But yeah, no, I'm looking here and not liking this matchup, at least.
Sure, yeah.
So we'll see, we go into turn 12. I'm going to go out to my defensive wall, trying to figure out what this Azumarill wants to do. I get the nice Rocky Helmet chip there. And I also, I reveal that you are banded, that damage tells me. So that's real nice.
Yeah, I was kicking myself for this play. I really should have just gone for Play Rough, but Waterfall was kind of covering the Magnezone switch, which does resist that, so I was kind of expecting that. But, like, I mean, chip on the Magnezone is chip on the Magnezone. It probably doesn't have a great way of recovering HP from my point of view. So, like, yeah, Slowbro was kind of the obvious switching that I maybe should have taken a little more advantage of there.
Yep. Well, we kind of, you know, flip it right there. We'll see that you go into Hydreigon as I go for a Surf there. I really wanted to click Ice Beam, predicting the Hydreigon. I don't really know why I didn't. I think maybe I was expecting just that special for Farigiraf to come out again. Because, yeah, like, Surf honestly isn't that good there, and getting an Ice Beam off here would have been real nice. Because, yeah, no, Hydreigon definitely seems pretty good. Maybe I was also expecting, you know, something that, like, could come in if I was going for, like, a Thunder Wave or something. I don't know. Probably not the best move for me, but good switch for you into Hydreigon here.
Yep, feel good about it, and I get the Surf play. You don't know it yet, like that Fergraph isn't great at touching this or anything like that, so I totally get the read there. So yeah,
I think also a little bit of a mistake I made was I don't think I really calced that damage, because it was like, all right, you know, it's resisted, didn't do a lot, sure. I probably could have calced and found out that you were bulky, which would have given me a hint to kind of your set, but I don't think I did that during the match. So just a little bit of a just kind of a mistake on my part. Gotta always make sure you calc even the things that kind of seem insignificant.
Oh yeah. Looking at this, it does make sense that Surf would do about 15% to Hydreigon. I wouldn't question that either if I were you. So totally get it, and it does kind of reveal the value of, like, switching on defensive Pokemon. They're not necessarily calcing for that. Maybe they're trying to figure out the next offensive move. So yeah.
Well, Hydreigon is in here, and of course, I'm just going to go out into my special wall. Ting Lu, as you're going to set up those safe rocks. I did this, and then I saw, oh crap, I don't have Ruination on this. I don't, what Stone Edge is my best thing to kind of throw here, so that's a little awkward for me switching in, but you don't know that. But I like the safe rocks play. You know, I don't have removal. They're good into my team. Good play there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, on this turn, I am thinking, like, yeah, I can't do much damage to this. Like, I have Focus Blast, but that's doing, you know, on a standard Ting Lu set, maybe 20 to 25%. So I'm just kind of thinking, yep, got to get out of here. I bet he has body press. I bet he might have like spikes set up just to take advantage of my passivity in this matchup. So I'm definitely trying to figure out what I'm pivoting into on this turn.
Yep. Well, I wish I had Ruination, but I kind of count on the U-turn out here. You go into Azu as I go for the Earthquake, and I get a very nice critical hit there. Unfortunate for you, very nice for myself, because that brings the Azu into Rocky Helmet range. Don't have any hazards that can kind of take it out on switch in, but the Rocky Helmet is a nice way to take care of that now.
Yeah, it's the crits have been unfortunate, but honestly, more significant, I think, is just that Earthquake. It was a lot stronger than I was expecting it to be.
Yep.
And I mean, I wasn't expecting an Earthquake in the first place. I thought that might have been hazard setup since I don't know this set yet. And so having Azu that low is it's really unfortunate because it also means that Qian Pao looks a lot better into my team now that Azu is like within range of any attack. So. Rough turn for me. Not even necessarily because of the crit, though.
Yep. You go out into Fortress as, like I said, I'm counting on that Rocky Helmet. I just go back out into Slowbro, pretty safe on my part. And then I see this Slowbro staring down this Fortress, and I do not know the world of hurt I am in for.
Yeah. This was feigning a defensive switch, but here we see Pin Missile.
Look at all that damage! Look at all that text, and then look at all that damage. Yeah, no, I see Fortress is like, alright, well, he could go for spikes, maybe he goes for, like, a Volt Switch or something. That's fine, I can kind of stay in, scout, see what he goes for, get some good special damage off with the Surf, and oh my gosh! I took so much damage. And yeah, no, at that point, I furiously start calculating, like, what is this? And I realize, oh my god, he's, like, max attack adamant with loaded dice, probably. Oh my gosh, this is incredible and not something I was prepared for at all. And with Slowbro down this much, that makes... you know, like something like Great Tusk, very scary right now until I can try and find some time to get some Slack off or Regenerator to get back up to a healthier turn. I have to imagine you're feeling pretty good here.
Yeah, excuse me. This felt really nice to get that much damage off on Slowbro. I will admit that like Slowbro's the target where it's like, oh well, this is the one he can heal up with Regenerator and Slack off. So it's a bit unfortunate, but like still. Like I can kind of capitalize on the switch out here, kind of hope to keep this low throughout the rest of the battle, and you know, take advantage of this big damage I got here.
Yep. Well, after taking all that damage, I have to go into Mence. I get the Intimidate off on this offensive set, and you know I should be able to take most things you were going for that turn. And you just set up those spikes, and you know I have boots on. Moth and Qian Pao. Of course, the spikes don't affect Salamence, so they're not terrible, but definitely, I think, something that was shown in my match against the Steamrollers was that, like, if you get those hazards, they really add up fast against, you know, Slowbro, and especially Tinglu, since Tinglu doesn't have any recovery. So I'm definitely not super concerned about them, but like one more layer of spikes and I'm going to be getting pretty worried.
Yeah, sure. And the main thing I liked about that spike setup was that, you know, Slowbro was pretty decently likely, I mean, very likely to switch out on that turn because the next Pin Missile's KOing and you want Regenerator recovery. So I figured even if there's a decent number of boots on the team, which makes sense, it's a great way to pressure that Slowbro, make sure it's not regenerating too much of that progress I just made. So that was the main point there.
Yeah. So here we go into turn 19. I get a little bit of lefties there. And I just go for the, just try and attack the fortress that's in front of me. You make the switch out into that special wall, nice and safe on your part. I think the switch was a little obvious. So I probably could have gone Qian Pao there. But really the Fortress had just absolutely shredded Slowbro. I realize it's gonna have some moves for some of my other Pokemon, and getting that real low would have been very nice. So I just took the didn't want to risk over predicting. And
Oh yeah,
just hit
absolutely, I
what
get
was in
that.
front of me.
Hmm.
Well, here we're back here in the greatest matchup, and I'll go out to Bro here, just trying to get some extra recovery, because I know that this thing really doesn't touch me. It's unfortunate that, you know, we're kind of you're already at full health. You've got the wishes and stuff, so you can uh you're going to kind of be the first one out of this kind of situation into something a bit more aggressive. But I just saw the opportunity to get some recovery on Slowbro, which I'm definitely going to need in the future.
Yeah, that's a smart play on your end, and unfortunately, I was not in a great position to capitalize on it just because of the threatening Salamis that was staring me down. Like, switching in Slowbro here is pretty darn safe, especially since I have revealed that I'm Future Sight, which protects. So it's not too likely I would be KOing you on the switch. So I like this play a lot from you.
Yep. And you can go right out into the Hydreigon, as I do need, I don't feel I can, you know, make a prediction there, and I just go for the slack off. Of course, with Regenerator, I'll be right back up to full, so feeling pretty decent about that, although this Hydreigon is definitely scary. Don't have too much information on its set yet, so it could, you know, be going for any number of moves the following turn here.
Yeah, so yeah, you know, this is my pivot into Slowbro, and I'm looking at a free turn here and kind of deciding if I want to try to hit this because it just recovered and I'd like to get it back down to low HP, or more likely figure out what I want to do on the switch out. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep. And I go out into Chien Pao, obviously trying to tank a Dark Pulse, as you go for the Focus Blast and you hit it, and well, there goes Chien Pao. That's unfortunate. I guess I go Moth here to threaten this now. Yeah, no, I was you definitely got me there. I know, I think you said we're predicting the Ting Lu to come in there instead of the Chien Pao. Certainly I don't think you're upset about Chien Pao coming in and getting smacked by that. Especially because, like you said, with Azu and Fortress getting low, Chien Pao is looking better and better. I was a bit surprised that you went for that though. I thought for sure. I think uh Dark Pulse was at worst a roll to KO. At least, you know, looking at regular Hydreigon sets. And I was like, all right, I don't think he is in a position where he needs to predict. You know, Ting Lu coming in, you know, he can always, you know, U-turn out after that. The hazards are going to be starting to rack up on that. I didn't think you needed to make that prediction. So there were definitely some plays where, like, all right, you know, I think I could have seen that one coming. I was completely caught off guard by that Focus Blast.
Yeah, I you're right in that I didn't necessarily need to make that prediction, but one thing I did feel a little covered by was that Focus Blast into Future Sight on the Slowbro was actually doing like not horrible damage in total, even if both hits are resisted. Like Future Sight's a decent hit on Slowbro anyway, so like I felt a little covered by that, and then you know Ting Lu felt obvious to tank a Dark Pulse and obviously be immune to the Future Sight, so like getting even any extra chip on that is great for the Iron Moth strategy that I have going in the back.
Yeah, no, I think that's you know, thinking about the Future Sight and the, you know, Focus Blast combined, it's real smart. That's the just, you know, real good job kind of keeping track of all of the moving pieces here. And yeah, no, I mean, I see uh this thing come out and it's like, all right, well, I guess I go into, you know, what do I have for this? Mence, Moth. Well, Mence just kind of invites Farigiraf back in. I mean, honestly, Moth kind of invites Farigiraf back in anyway, but just go for something a little bit different. See if I can force you into a slightly different path of play and get a little more information going here. As well as, like, I think I was a little bit worried about it. It's like, well, like, he could be like a Dragon Resist Berry, or, he could tear something, Salamence goes down, and I lose Mence and Jian Pao right back to back. I was like, alright, nope, that's pretty much sunk for me, so I think Moth was just a little bit more consistent, although I think they both certainly could be foiled depending on what you had going on here.
Sure, yeah. I mean, with Hydreigon, it's especially a good Terra candidate, as we've kind of seen over the season. So I totally get, like, I think we've seen the whole moveset at this point, and, Iron Moth isn't taking much from that much it's doing. Decent shit from Dark Pulse, but, like, this is a pretty safe offensive answer.
Yep.
Yeah, on my end, obviously I'm thinking, like, this is a pretty obvious Dazzling Gleam, so I have, like, a couple of ideas for that, but Farigiraf does just make sense. I gotta say that, like, having the Qian Pao down at this point does just open up Farigiraf to, like, be in more often, because I'm not worried about the double switches after that anymore. So that's, it's really nice.
All right, so we go into turn 23. I think, we actually haven't seen the fourth move on Hydreigon yet.
That's right.
It's it's a real toss-up at this point. Is it Draco? Is it Dark Pulse? Is it Earth Power? There's a bunch of different things it could be. And like I said, don't want to risk, losing two big offensive pieces back to back. So you do switch out into the special wall, but I didn't want to over predict and get punished real hard. So I just went for the Dazzling Gleam into the thing that's in front of me. And now I got to figure out what to do about this Farigiraf.
Yep, it's once again the special wall, and unfortunately, like, there's not too much productive that, like, I'm immediately doing to anything you have. So
yep,
and we're both kind of staring this down, being like, okay, what's next? But we're just gonna kind of move along.
Just feel it out. I go for a flamethrower just to kind of scout. Maybe I get a nice lucky burn. You go for the future sight, of course, threatening the Moth. Looking at your set, I'm a little surprised you didn't go for Thunderwave there. But just the future sight is just consistent and is gonna, kind of probably force in my Ting-Lu at some point, which you can try and take advantage of.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Honestly, like, whenever I had Farigiraf, or, like, for that matter, Hydreigon in, I expected Ting-Lu to be coming in more often against those things. So, like, Thunderwave was kind of, like, cut off because I'm like, well, he could bring in Ting-Lu and I would be getting nothing done that turn. But yeah, you're right. Like, paralyzing this Iron Moth would have been so nice. So, yeah, I mean, probably could have just felt it out on that turn with the Thunderwave.
All right. Yep. Well, I see you're staying in. I got to Bro, who can just kind of sit in on this thing as long as it wants. I can sit here, get some HP, stall a little bit of real world time and try and kind of figure out a game plan. Probably should have just gone into Ting-Lu. I think I was panicking a little bit for as far as, like, well, how do I deal with this? And honestly, just going into, like, Ting-Lu and, like, throat chopping instead of, trying to kind of stall this thing out a little bit, with Bro, probably, the better play. Sure, you have switch-ins to that, but, it's not, terrible, and it will probably at least get me chip on things that I care about more.
Sure, yeah. And this, honestly, is just such an awkward matchup on both sides, because I am not particularly happy to, like, switch something in on this, because I think I've only seen Surf offensively from this so far, so, like, the other coverage could be anything, and I am not eager to find out what it is.
Yep. Well, here we're gonna go for 26. You just go for the wish. I'm expecting maybe Hydreigon again, and, you know, worst case, you know, I potentially get freeze. So Ice Beam, you know, pretty okay for me here. It would have been nice to catch the Hydreigon. I think that might have been my overall play, was I was kind of hoping to force this out into something that I could take advantage of with a super effective hit. But honestly, no reason for you to not stay in and set up a wish here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to preserve Fergraph for future turns here because it's looking nice against a pretty specially offensive team right now. And so, like, having that health for later is going to be really nice. You know, Hydreigon showed up as my switch into Slowbro multiple times before, so yeah, Ice Beam makes a lot of sense, but I just kind of needed to stay in and, like, regather my resources before doing that.
Yep. Of course, I take the Future Sight, doing a quarter, still decent damage. I see here, your final move is Thunder Wave. I go for the Ice Beam, and I get the Freeze! That's real nice. Just, you know, 2 Ice Beams, 50% freeze chance, you know, we take that. As well as, you know, like, I now, you know, see the full Farigiraf set, so I'm feeling really good coming out of this turn. Real unlucky for you. I feel a bit bad about the freeze, because that's certainly going to help me break through the Farigiraf if it can't thaw its way out in a couple turns.
Yeah, for sure. This is real unfortunate. I mean, anytime you're dealing with multiple Ice Beams, which might have been like what this devolved into here, it's bound to happen eventually. It's unfortunate to see, but you know, I wasn't too upset about it at the time. But this does mean that like my main and, you know, really only special dedicated wall is out of commission for the time being. I thought about like, okay, what can I do with Farigiraf now? And you know, there's the possibility, I think, switching into a fire move does actually thaw a frozen Pokemon. Yeah. So like there's a possibility of switching into Iron Moth later, but like that's so dependent on like you wanting to cooperate with that. So it's tough to see what Farigiraf can do after this point.
Yeah. So you of course are back up nice and pretty much full after that wish, which yeah makes me have to think pretty carefully about Iron Moth if you can like bait out a fire move with Fortress or something. Turn 28, though, you go out to Hydreigon, and I'm expecting a switch. Mence does pretty decently into a lot of things, so thought I could just come out here and just see whatever the heck you end up going out into. Wouldn't have liked to see the Moth, but I still have Ting Lu, and basically everything else Salamence is pretty nice into.
Sure, yeah. Switch out for me is pretty obvious, and Salamence is now looking to potentially tear a hole through the team now that Farigiraf is very hard to use at the moment.
Yep. And he's turn 29 here. You go out into that Farigiraf. No reason for me not to Draco there. I know that your Special Wall is frozen. I potentially get big damage off on the Hydreigon if it stays in front of me, or like the Moth if it tries to switch in on to a special move. So not pretty safe for me. And with that special attack drop, you're gonna get yourself a couple of turns to try and thaw here.
Yeah, I figure on the Draco, that special attack drop, this is maybe my best chance to like fish for thaw turns. So I'm just gonna stay in and go for it. You know, the Iron Moth, like baiting in the fire move for later, that's a decent idea, but I just didn't feel like, you know, hoping against hope that you were going to do that and I would be able to get the read right.
Yeah. Well, seeing as you're frozen here, I'm gonna go for the EQ. Doesn't matter with the special attack drop, and we can see I'm easily putting you in range of a follow-up KO here.
Yep, and yeah, that was the reveal of Earthquake, and I'm like, yeah, crap, I'm probably going down next turn here. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation for our good old Frigoraph.
Yeah, it's real. I like. It's unfortunate that I couldn't, you know, reveal the uh Earthquake like behind a sub and like Moth coming in. I could have tried
Hmm.
to take this chance to sub up, but this photograph has been such a pain. Like I don't want to give you too many turns uh to try and fall.
Yeah, I was initially surprised that you're staying in and either not grabbing a sub or not switching to something else on this Frigoraph, but I totally get it. Like you don't want to give me too many turns to try and get that RNG, so it makes sense. This thing has been a pain for you, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, my only physical way to break through it is Ting Lu, and you certainly have mons that can smack Ting Lu, so it's really not that great.
Sure, yeah.
31 here. I think well, maybe he goes into Hydreigon now. I have the special attack drop. Maybe uh he, you know, predicts the earthquake and just was like, all right, well, I can preserve a sack here. Get Hydreigon in with a decent matchup. So I go for the Hurricane. Unfortunately, I miss. I think I don't think Hurricane would have KO'd, but you know, it was a middle ground play there.
Sure, yeah. And unfortunately for you, it does give me one extra turn to try and thaw, but we see how that worked out.
We do see, and I see that. All right, well, uh, yep, nope. He seems to just be sacking it. Unfortunately, still frozen for yourself, and with that on turn 33, the menace of the Farigiraf is finally gone.
Yeah, I was hoping, maybe get a like that last turn when I was at about 4%, just get that protect, like if I thaw out, and then I can probably well, I can't do that much from that point, but I can at least make some action in front of the Slowbro later.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and Fortress comes out. Makes sense. You've got Ice Spinner Ferments. You've got moves to kind of cover most of the things I could switch in. Why do you go into Fortress over? I mean, you have other things. I have the special attack drop, so you could have gone into like Great Tusk. You could have gone into Moth.
Hmm.
What was the thinking on Fortress?
Yeah, so I really didn't feel good about any switch. If I'm being honest, Iron Moth does have Dazzling with the potential to pop Terra Fairy on that, but I'm also noticing that you haven't used your Terra yet, and like tearing defensively and then going for Earthquake. If I happen to not Terra myself, that's disaster for me. So that and I'm trying to preserve Moth that item a little bit for the end game.
Sure.
Great Tusk was definitely a high priority for me, but like even at -2, a Hurricane's doing very significant damage, so it's hard to justify that. So that does leave Fortress, which is like, from about a little over half health. It's a little more expendable than those two at this point. And I can KO from this range, and yeah, I think I do survive any hit, given that you're -2 in special attacks. So it felt like the safest quote unquote play.
Sure. Well, turn 34, I just attack the thing that's in front of me. I get the confusion, but you hit through the confusion, and Ice Spinner just clean KO there. And I'm kicking myself a little bit there. You know, I thought through the Fortress's moveset turn 1 to dodge the Earthquake, but did not. One day I will learn that Pokemon besides Qianpao get Ice Spinner now. And yeah, Mence was looking rather good, especially like behind a sub, so uh going into probably like Magnezone or something, because like probably you weren't going to go for an EQ there, would have been really nice, but well, I have to live with the situation I found myself in, and well, Moth is pretty good here into most things. Although I think again, kind of Magnezone would have been a little bit better here.
Very excuse me. Either way, I am like kind of from this low health. I'm kind of sacking off the Fortress at this point because I just don't feel comfortable. Like even if Magnezone would come in, I don't feel comfortable switching into special attacks from either of these two. So just kind of have to kind of go down.
Yep. And I just go for the Flamethrower. Could have gone for a coverage move there, because I think basically anything except Energy Ball KO'd there. But I kind of expected you to sack it at that point. So not much of a reason to not just go for the Flamethrower. You go out into a Azumarill, which I think is a little bit interesting. I see that and it's like, all right, Rocky Helmet Chip will certainly take it down this time, go out into Bro, and you double out into Hydreigon. Was that kind of the play all along?
That was the play. Looking back at this, like that was shockingly risky on my end, given that you just went for Dazzling on that Iron Moth, like the last time this was in.
Yeah.
But the point was that like I'm threatening Aqua Jet. I don't think you can afford to let Iron Moth go down to a Banded Aqua Jet, so I'm just gonna make the double out. I just didn't want Iron Moth on my screen anymore, so I just had to threaten it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a real good play there. Again, it's another thing that's like, like if I thought it through for, another minute, maybe I could have figured out that was your plan. But I think just real well done there. And yeah, nope, here's Hydreigon and Slowbro round 2. Still don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this time I'm kind of thinking, I haven't seen Ting Lu come out on this for a long time, so like does he switch out, does he not? So like trying to make decisions based on that.
Yeah. No, and I'm thinking that too. I stay in, you just go for the Dark Pulse, pick up the easy KO, and oh, that's real rough. I had been things like, all right, he's been real prediction heavy this entire game. I don't think he just clicks the raw Dark Pulse here, and that's the turn that you do. So very unfortunate there for myself. But good job there. You've just I have to say, like, this entire game that like you have just been winning the prediction game that I just haven't been historically. I seem to have had your number a little bit, but not this match. You're definitely making all the right calls here.
Oh yeah, thank you. And with these predictions, I'm trying to like cover myself the most I can with these. So for example, the Focus Blast into the Chien-Pao switch, and I had the Future Sight to back that up. I didn't really have anything to back up, like if I stay in and like Focus Blast the Slowbro or like pivot out with U-turn, like it is risky. Like, I don't have a great switch in, and you have revealed Ice Beam, so I was just like, okay, I'm making the play that keeps me the healthiest going into the next turn regardless.
Yeah. Probably let's see, like Ting Lu is still fairly healthy. I probably didn't need to make that read. But I'm definitely at this point in the game I had been feeling pretty decently, and I'm starting to panic a little bit. And maybe my decision making is slipping a little bit. Don't think I've made any big mistakes, but definitely getting a bit worried here. But I do know Hydreigon's whole set now. The Moth switch on your end was really obvious. I probably should have clicked Psychic there, which I think really would have thrown me right back into, maybe being in the lead here. But yeah, the Hydreigon's been real annoying. So I'm just attacking the thing that's in front of me.
Going for Psychic there, obviously, given what happened, would have been a great play, but it would have been a very, very bold decision to make. So I totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've seen that you don't have Earth Power. I'm decently specially bulky, but yeah, no, I'm not thinking. I'm just kind of just taking the basic plays right now. But I do see that your booster energy. I was like, okay, well, this is obviously some kind of setup set. Maybe he has the psychic, maybe he doesn't. He probably has something like Fiery Dance. I'm not sure. I'm trying to gauge, what is your moth built for, and what is it going to do. You go for Psychic, then I go for Psychic, and we just keeping each other honest with the Psychics there.
Yep.
I probably could have gone, should have gone just Hard Tinglu, as, that Moth is quickly kind of becoming my win con, and taking all that damage on it was probably pretty detrimental. Tinglu's still decently healthy. It can still take a hit from your Moth, but it is what it is.
And, Tinglu trying to preserve that health, I get it. In the face of an Iron Moth and Hydreigon that are still there, you need to be careful about how many hits you're taking. And, the fact that I'm going for Psychic here, it's unfortunate that, both our Moths had to go down to low health like that, but shows the prep we had for each other.
Yep. And yeah, like, I'm still feeling not too, losing the HP on Moth wasn't great, but like, your Moth is kind of what's stopping my Moth right now. With that Azu also kind of in the back there with like Aqua Jet. Even like if I tear, it'd still do a decent amount. But like I'm saying, like, all right, I can Energy Ball, Great Tusk, I can Gleam, Hydreigon, Azumarill's really low. It's like I'm close. I can get back in this, but I'm gonna have to navigate the end of this battle pretty carefully.
Yeah, the fact that my Moth is, with the booster energy speed, it's definitely max speed, and I'm not, like, at that point, I wasn't sure, like,
yeah,
maybe he's speed creeping a little bit down, so that I would speed every time, and, like, yeah, that is the case, on like, looking at it from your end, so, yeah, definitely preserving that, and trying to take out my Moth here, makes sense as a priority. From my side, I'm looking at the 3 Pokemon you have left, and I'm thinking, like, yeah, my Moth, like, it's doing pretty nice here outside this Tinglu, which I, would hopefully be able to chip down with something. And then if it goes down, like, your Moth outspeeds everything, so I need to, like, be very creative with how I answer it if we end up in that kind of situation.
All right, well, I have to go to Tinglu, because I know you're going to outspeed. I take all of that hazard damage. You go for the Psychic again. I respect it. Like you said, that my Iron Moth, both of our mobs are looking real scary, and you've got the speed advantage. Like, over-predicting there could have been pretty disastrous. So I respect just going for the Psychic there, even though, like, Tinglu was pretty likely.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it switch in and I was like, yeah, that makes sense, but I really just didn't feel I had the resources to make that prediction.
Yep. Alright, well, I need damage on the Moth here, and, well, okay, I mean, I guess I'll take Azu. I'm not upset about taking out Azu there, although, I probably would have preferred for the Moth to go down. And now, finally, Great Tusk gets the field.
Yeah.
I guess it and I don't think Zones hit the field. So we're both bringing out the last of the Mons here finally.
Kind of falling on our last resorts at this point. Yeah. It was the most inflexible piece that I had, I think, at that point. So I was like, you know what, this is probably the least likely to help me win the game, just because Aqua Jet is kind of all I have to deal with Iron Moth, and like the other two aren't phased too much by that. Like Magnezone can switch in. So I was like, okay, might as well sack this, have the most health I can on the rest of my pieces, so Great Tusk can come in safely on this.
Yeah. And kind of I'm seeing Great Tusk come in, and I'm just like, well, the hazards are up and are kind of, willing down Ting Lu if I keep switching out. Don't really have anything to switch into Great Tusk anyway. I mean, like, I guess if I'm, like, predicting, a fighting type move, maybe Moth can take that. I'm at 40%. Maybe I can take it. But really, I don't think I have the freedom to kind of go for that. So I'm just going to try and stay in and get some damage off. You go for the Rapid Spin, which is very nice, covers any switch I make, and I get a little bit of chip here with the Earthquake, but I am starting to get a bit concerned here about, what this Great Tusk can do, because then if it has, close combat and EQ or Headlong Rush, well, that's pretty much a game here.
Yeah, I'm kind of going for game at this point, going for that speed boost, and I do have super effective moves into all three of your remaining team members. Unfortunately, this is where the fighting coverage, like lacking that, is starting to bite me on my side because I cannot KO this from this range. So I just kind of have to go for the best damage I can, which is going to be Ice Spinner.
Yep.
And then hopefully with the reduced health I have from not KOing you on this turn, I can go for a sweep from there unless you have some trick up your sleeve that I would have to react to, and then hopefully I have enough resources to, bring my own tricks to the table after that.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm seeing what's going on. You go for the Ice Spinner. Luckily, I don't go down there. Get off a little more chip with that EQ, and you go for the Headlong Rush there, and I'm seeing, right, I'm definitely in the weeds here, but I have a slight chance going into Magnezone, and I know that, I can't go out into Moth here because your Moth outspeeds it, because I know that you're max speed because of the booster energy, and I know I'm not. So if I went out to Moth, you could just sack something, then go out to your own Moth, and then have a pretty good shot at the game from there. I'm like, all right, well, Magnezone here, if I Terra, I can barely live a Headlong Rush into a Fiery Dance thanks to the berry, and then that would leave me with my Moth versus your Hydreigon, and maybe I can pull something off. It was, pretty, it's a bit of a long shot, I'm kind of thinking it through here. Well, if I had gone into Moth, then, you sack something, you go into your own Moth, then if I save the berry there, I don't think that was a better line of play, so I'm definitely going for a bit of a long shot here, but I'm not completely out.
For sure, yeah, and at this point, you're bringing in Magnezone, and I'm thinking, okay, neither of us have revealed our Terra option, and if he is pulling out a win, it's with some kind of Terra option on this to not die to the ground move. So it's such a hard decision on my end because I can Headlong Rush to, KO if it's not Terra, and like if it's Terra, it obviously lives and KOs me, and I have to use my resources from there afterwards. I could knock off, which is the mid-ground play between just hitting this and accepting that I'm going down, and like, also hitting at the Terra option and hopefully just doing enough damage afterwards. Or I could Ice Spinner if I'm crazy, but I'm not going to do that. So I just figured, like, I need to, like, figure out what's going on here. I need to force that Terra option out if I can, so I'm going for it.
Yep. And I am forced to go Terra. I take the Headlong Rush pretty well. Obviously, with the two special defense drops, Analytic Flash Cannon's easily going to KO there. I'm like, all right, well, what does he go into? And thankfully, you do go into the Moth. I was like, well, if he goes into Hydreigon, then I've got nothing, because he can get Chip with Dark Pulse. Then I go down to a Fiery Dance, and he outspeeds my Moth. But he's like, all right, he goes to the Moth. I have technically a chance.
Yep. And I saw, like, I went for Headlong Rush, forced out the Terra Grass. I'm like, okay, his Terra is expended. I don't think he has any more tricks up his sleeve. Like looks like Fire Dance is an easy KO on the grass typing from here, so like I'm ready to revenge with Moth. Let's go for that.
But I do have that berry that still works and will just save me here, letting me bring it down right down to the wire here. I looking at your set, unfortunate that you didn't go for Sludge Wave. Probably would have been the better play there, but like I definitely understand. We both have been. It's been a real good match so far. We've both got a lot of adrenaline going on. Like you see, I'm like, all right, I can go for game. I can wrap it up. But I did have one last trick up my sleeve.
Yep, that you did, and it got me. I wish I had gone for Sludge Wave. I think if I had another minute to think about it, I would have.
Yeah.
But I just in that moment, like resist berries were the last thing on my mind at that point.
Yeah. That'll bring out Hydreigon still at full health. Of course, it'll outspeed. I'll go down there, and now it's Moth versus Hydreigon, down to our last mons apiece. And I'm thinking here, all right, well, real good job. I'm real proud of that Magnezone play, and I know that you haven't Terra'd yet. So what do I go for? You're obviously going to Terra here. The question is just, what is your Terra type? Is it something neutral, in which case I should go for Flamethrower? Is it like Dragon or Dark for, the boosted offense, in which case, I should still go for Gleam? Really unsure what to go for, but I'm also, because I don't have much information on doing calcs for this Hydreigon, I'm like, all right, well, I probably just go down to something here anyway, because I still thought you were decently offensive. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe he's an offensive Terra type, and I Gleam still manages to do something. Unfortunately, you are Ghost, so Gleam not doing enough there. However, I do actually live the Dark Pulse because I'm a little bulky and you are not especially offensive. So I managed to live that. Think maybe a crit? Nope. Not saved, and I do go down to Hydreigon there. Would have needed a fair amount of luck to get myself out of that situation. I think, like, a crit, if I had gone for a Flamethrower right off and, like, gotten a crit or gotten the burn, then I could have pulled it out. But the bulk really paying off for you there.
Yeah, going into that last few turns with Hydreigon, I was so glad I went Terra Ghost, not even for the Iron Moth matchup, but for the Lucario that didn't show up.
Yep.
And it worked out well. I had half a mind before the battle to go Terra Steel, because that's just a good type on Hydreigon, and like if I had done that, that was game for you. So yeah. Like I was very, very happy with the Hydreigon I went with.
No, but that's good game. Very, very well played on your part. That was an absolutely fantastic match.
Yeah, absolutely great game, and yeah, well, super well played on your part too. It came down to the absolute wire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and looking back at that battle, I mean, I definitely think there were a couple better decisions I could have made in the team builder, but like when it came down to it, I think you just played that match so well. Your prediction game was just on point the entire game, and I was just one step behind you for most of it. So I think just incredible job picking the right plays at the right time there.
Thank you. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was such a hard match to predict around. Like, I definitely, like, I caught a few lucky breaks with reads that I was making for one thing and then happened to another. The Chen Pao was like, that was a big turn in my favor. And yeah, I mean, like any one like mistake that I made or any one extra step you could have made, like, would have shifted this match in the other direction. So yeah, what a game for the finals, right?
Heck yeah. Always a good time when we play each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've had our fair share of matches now in the league. Got quite the history going.
I felt confident going in, at least on history. Me against you with a perfect season is a pretty good matchup, it turns out, for me, but not this time.
Yeah, shoot, I guess so. But yeah, good game.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for the match and for joining me today as a co-host to go over this fantastic match.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Thank you to all of you for watching with us. Looking at the timestamp here, it's going to be a little bit of a longer